Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to try and untangle this huge paradox that's right at the heart of the AI revolution. Because on one hand, you hear all this stuff about explosive growth, but then on the other, you hear about widespread failure. How does that even work?
I mean, you hear it all the time, right? AI is about to change everything. You've got tech leaders like Nvidia CEO basically heralding a brand new industrial revolution. They're promising these systems that are going to outperform us, humans, at pretty much any task you can think of.
But behind those big flashy headlines, there's a totally different story playing out. And the number is just staggering. 90%. 90% of these big enterprise AI agent projects, the AIs that are supposed to handle complex tasks all on their own, they fail. They just collapse, usually within the first 30 days. So, what is going on? How can both of these things be true at the same time? You've got some companies with like 400% growth year over year, and then this 90% failure rate for actual projects. It just doesn't add up. This is the mystery we're going to dig into today. And to start, we're going to do what you always do. We're going to follow the money.
Okay, so our first clue. It's not buried in some complex code or fancy algorithm. Nope, it's actually hiding in plain sight, right there on the balance sheets of pretty much every major company. And what it shows us is this revolutionary shift in how these businesses are thinking.
See, for decades, software companies have been in this brutal fight. They were all scrapping over the exact same small prize, the IT budget. And we're talking a tiny slice of the pie here, usually just 2% of a company's total spending. But here's the thing. The really smart AI companies, they're not even playing that game anymore. They've completely shifted their focus to a much, much bigger target, the labor budget. And that is a monster, accounting for a massive 60 to 70% of all the money a company spends.
Here's a great example. Take the legal AI tool Harvey. A law firm looking at Harvey isn't thinking, how does this $1,200 a month compare to our other software? No way. They're comparing it to the salary of a first-year lawyer, which can be, over $13,000 a month? Suddenly the math looks very different.
So, just by changing the conversation, by reframing what they're competing against, these AI companies have made what looks like super expensive software feel like an absolute bargain. And that, right there, is how some of the most expensive AI tools are also becoming the most successful ones.
Okay, but a smart business model, that's not the whole story. It doesn't explain the fever pitch of this AI boom. For that, we've got to look beyond the spreadsheets and dive into something a little messier, human psychology.
And you really have to pay attention to the language that's being used. It's super subtle, but it's a huge tell for how expectations are being managed. You'll notice, right when a technology starts to hit its limits, the marketing terms, they just quietly shift. Autonomous agents suddenly become AI assistants. The metaverse becomes personal superintelligence. It's basically reality catching up to the hype, and the words change to soften the blow.
And we fall for this trap all the time. It's called the almost works fallacy. You see a demo, right? And it gets it right 95% of the time. Our brains just naturally assume that last 5% is going to be easy, just a small final step. But the truth is, that last little bit, that's often exponentially harder. It can require a monumental leap to get there.
And this whole thing gets supercharged by our own biases. We see this really fast progress, and our brains just can't help it. We draw that line straight up into the future, like it's never going to slow down. And that creates this intense fear of missing out, FOMO, that pressures absolutely everyone, from you and me to the boards of Fortune 500 companies, to just jump in, a lot of times without any real plan.
All right, let's move on to our next piece of the puzzle. Because when you take this hype-fueled psychology and you mix it with the desperate need for money to fund these huge ambitions, well, you uncover a system that starts to look less like a normal economy and a lot more like a closed loop that just feeds itself.
See, this boom isn't just being funded by the usual venture capital. Now, it's being financed by some really sophisticated and, let's be honest, incredibly risky new kinds of financial engineering. And the parallels to some of the bubbles we've seen in the past, they are pretty striking.
The key tool they're using here is something called a special purpose vehicle, or SPV. Just think of it like a shell company, a separate legal entity created for one single purpose, to take on a ton of debt for a big project. And the magic trick here is that it keeps all that debt and risk completely off the main company's books, making it practically invisible to a lot of investors. So let me walk you through how this actually works, using a real example. First, a company, let's say X.AI, creates this shell company, the SPV. Then, that SPV goes out and raises billions of dollars in debt to buy a bunch of chips from, say, Nvidia. And then, the original company, X.AI, just rents the chips back from its own shell company. And poof, they get access to billions in hardware, and none of that debt ever shows up on their main balance sheet.
And the scale of this is just mind-blowing. Out of an estimated $24 billion in AI infrastructure debt out there right now, almost half of it, 49%, is hidden off the books using these exact kinds of structures. We're talking about a mountain of invisible risk. So now that we've kind of pulled back the curtain on the financial side of things, we can start to see how all this immense pressure, the pressure to justify spending billions of dollars, connects back to the real world and, to the very real human cost of all this. You see a lot of people losing their jobs right now in the middle of this AI boom. And the popular story, the one you hear everywhere, is that AI is replacing them. But a lot of the time, that's just a really convenient cover story for something much older. Plain old corporate cost cutting.
So for example, a company like Amazon might say publicly that, oh, AI is making some jobs redundant. But then behind the scenes, they're applying for thousands of H-1B visas. Just in 2025, they got approval for over 10,000 visas to bring in foreign tech workers, who, well, often cost less.
So why bother with the AI layoff story? Well, the incentive is pretty clear. Almost every single time a company makes one of these announcements, their stock price jumps. I mean, look at Bumble. Their stock shot up 25% on the same day they announced layoffs. And of course, that directly benefits the executives whose pay is tied to how well the stock is doing.
So there you have it. We've kind of cracked the paradox. This simultaneous boom and bust in AI, it's not just one thing. It's really a perfect storm. You've got these clever business models targeting labor, you've got our own psychology fanning the flames of hype, and you've got these risky financial bets hiding the real price tag. And when you put it all together, it shows you what the real game is here.
And what it reveals is the new endgame for the entire industry. See, the competition isn't really about who has the smartest AI model anymore. It's about who controls the infrastructure underneath it all. We're talking about the cloud platforms, the exclusive access to APIs, and creating this architectural lock-in that makes it almost impossible for a customer to leave. At the end of the day, all of this forces us to look past the flashy demos and ask a new and I think much more important question. If the AI models are just the pieces moving around the chessboard and the infrastructure is the board itself, then who's really winning the game?